Or should I say peace? Anyway, welcome back to Nails Before Films. Finally, I get to do another review. As you can see, I have a new set of intro nails. Yay! Since I'll be talking about a new topic, I figured why not make a new intro? I have a special guest with me as well. It's Goruda Shippu from Uma Musume Pretty Derby. Isn't she adorable? Although my channel name is Nails Before Films, I don't plan on reviewing films only. I'm actually more of an anime fan than a movie fan. Well, I read more manga than I watch anime, but you guys get the idea. And while Uma Musume Pretty Derby isn't that popular outside of Japan, it's an anime that I absolutely freaking love. I do what I want on this channel, so I will talk about horse girls all I freaking want. Now, my road to becoming a horse girl simp is quite hilarious. For those who don't know, Uma Musume Pretty Derby is a multimedia franchise created by Cygames, the gaming studio known for Grand Blue Fantasy. Uma Musume turns real-life racehorses into cute girls, and in the game, you play as their trainer and train them to win races. The races they run in the game are generally in line with the races they participated in real life. Now, I knew none of this when I downloaded the game. I just saw a lot of people talking about it and decided to check it out. I thought the game was about running a farm and raising cute fictional horse girls. So imagine my surprise when it turned out to be a sports game involving real-life racehorses. Anyway, since I was playing the game, I decided to check out the anime as well. When I watched the first season, I thought it was mid, but that was partially because at that time, I still thought it was all fictional. I didn't know it was based on real-life horses, and I didn't know the race results were also based on real-life results. I thought it was just a sports anime with cute horse girls, and the characters and races were all made up. I only discovered it was all based on real life when watching the second season, and it drastically changed my view of Uma Musume. It went from a cute idol horse girl anime to something inspiring. Miraculous comebacks are inevitable in sports anime, but I have a hard time relating to them. It's easy to write an unbelievable comeback in a fictional story for dramatic effects, but I can't help but feel like such miracles are unlikely in real life. But in Uma Musume's case, it actually happened. I love season 2 not only because we can relate to Tokai Tale's struggles, but also because it isn't just written for the climax of a fairy tale. It's actual history. And that's what makes her triumph so inspiring for me. She went through success, she went through soul-crushing disappointment despite working as hard as she could, and she went through the realization that she could never be as good as she once was. At one point, she even decided to quit, but with the help of her friends and supporters, she got back up and kept going. In the end, with her hard work, determination, and faith, she created a miracle, and that miracle actually happened in real life. Cygames didn't alter the race results so that the story would have a perfect ending. Tokai Tale actually had a miraculous comeback in real life, which was the main reason why it made me cry. She didn't win every race, her dreams were shattered multiple times, and she even had humiliating defeats. But her story shows that if you keep getting back up, if you keep going, miracles can happen, and it had happened before. I know it's stupid to feel emotional from a freaking idol horse girl anime that's meant to sell a gacha game, but it's honestly so inspiring. That is why I love season 2 the most. They took existing race horses and turned them into a compelling, emotional, and inspiring story without alternating any of the real-life results. I didn't like season 1 as much because it was sort of a showcase for the game, so there were some what-ifs in the story. For example, Eru Kondoru Pasa didn't race in the Japanese derby, and the ending of season 1 was just a huge, "You can make these legendary horses race against each other in the game" advertisement. Besides, I just don't find Special Week's story as touching as Tokai Tale's. Please go watch season 2. I know horse girls sound stupid and the Japanese are weird for making race horses cute schoolgirls, but seriously, the story for season 2 is really good. Please, 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 please give it a chance. Anyway, let's get into the actual subject of this video, Uma Musume Pretty Derby Season 3. As you can tell, I became a huge fan of Uma Musume after Season 2, and I was absolutely thrilled for Season 3. However, maybe it was because I had high expectations. Season 3 turned out to be somewhat disappointing, especially when compared to Season 2. It wasn't really bad. Some episodes were done well and made me cry, but overall, the entire season was unfocused and bland. Most importantly, Kitasan Black, the protagonist of this season, was not exactly likable. I'll get into that in my next video, but let's go through the episodes one by one first. The season started out strong, which is another reason why I find it frustratingly disappointing. I cried after the very first episode because I hated when people give it their all, but it wasn't nearly enough. So I liked the first episode a lot. I thought it was a great way to build up Kitasan Black, and it would be interesting to see how she would overcome this failure. And they did a good job in the second episode too. It was natural to let nice nature be the one who guided Kitasan through her troubles because she went through something similar in season 2. Episode 2 had a satisfying ending with Kitasan overcoming her insecurities and winning the race. However, things started falling apart after episode 3. The pacing was terrible. Most of it felt like padding to get to the race, and Gorudo Shippu retiring wasn't that moving because there was no build-up. This was the first time we actually saw her race in the anime. Although people who play the game or know Japan's horse racing history would understand how thrilling it was to see Gorudo Shippu start from the last, speed up exponentially toward the end, and eventually win the race, it was never shown in the anime. Therefore, it's difficult for us to feel sad when she couldn't do that anymore because we never got to see it in the first place. Also, the concept of Dream Trophy League is honestly kind of stupid. They can't have the horse girls actually retired. It would go against the concept of the game, but they have to follow the history at the same time. So their solution is a cop-out, saying that they get to race in another league. But why would we want to watch them in another league when it's obvious they couldn't run as fast as they once did? The first 2 seasons were smart in leaving it open-ended. They never explicitly retired any of the horse girls, even if it happened in real life. It's just so stupid to show us that horse girls could become unsuitable for racing, yet put them in a geriatric league to race against other unfit horse girls. Nobody's going to get hyped up because of this. Next, episode 4 was when Kitasan was starting to get a little frustrating. For some reason, she was crying to nice nature again, lamenting over how she wasn't good enough. I was really confused when I saw that. Although she lost in the last episode, she looked motivated and cheerful, determined to keep trying. How did she lose all her confidence just because she got second place in the next race? It's just out of character. Kitasan is supposed to be optimistic and happy-go-lucky, so why did she suddenly become so fragile? Also, crying to nice nature was a weird choice. I know she helped her before in Haha, a horse girl who had won a G1 race was crying to the one who never won a G1. But it's not funny in my opinion. Kitasan saying she wasn't good enough to someone who had never won a G1 was extremely insensitive and frankly quite whiny. If you're not good enough, doesn't that mean nice nature is even worse? It made sense the first time nice nature cheered her up because Kitasan was going through something similar to what she experienced with Teo, but this time it felt more like a gag. I don't understand why they would take the heartfelt conversation in episode 2 and turn it into a joke. Anyway, the training part was fine, hard work leads to victory, yada yada yada. It was nice to see Mihono Burubon and Rice Shower, but why didn't you actually animate the race? I thought at first the race during the ending song was just a memory or something. It was only when they showed the Shield trophy at the end did I realize that it was the race she'd been training for this whole episode. What the actual fudge? Why would you do that? Properly show us the gosh darn race for fudge's sake. The whole episode was leading up to this. Why would you rob us of the result and only show us some lazy still images? It's even more frustrating if you look into the actual race. Kitasan only won by 4 centimeters after running 3,200 meters. It was a really close race and a great chance to show us how her training helped her. Give her some lines like how exhausting and painful it was to run for such a long distance, how her legs were giving out. But then she remembered her training and it gave her the push to win the race by 4 centimeters, which was the closest spring Tenno-sho win ever. Why would you give up such an exciting race? I understand they only have 13 episodes, but that's exactly why you need to have better pacing. I'd rather they cut some of the training part and the cringy crying at the beginning to make room for the race. It's just so frustrating to see an exhilarating race shown in such a cheap way, while unnecessary scenes like Kitasan crying and bumping into stuff get more screen time. The next episode wasn't as bad, but I don't like how Kitasan felt inferior to Duramente when they first talked. She said something like, "You're so strong, aren't you afraid of losing?" to Duramente while looking self-abased. I was like, why are you like this? You've won 2 G1s yourself. Have more confidence for Fudge's sake. I know it's mostly because she lost the first 2 times they raced, and she got over it pretty quickly, so it's not a big deal. However, while it's great that they stuck to the result in real life, neither Kitasan nor Duramente won the race. It was disrespectful of Kitasan to be like, "Who are you?" to the horse girl who won. And in the end, Kitasan and Duramente completely ignored her and acted like they were the first place and second place. I know you guys don't have the licensing for that horse, but at least show a little more respect. Some people online are arguing that the "Who are you" line makes sense because that was how people reacted to the race in real life. But then make someone besides Kitasan say it. Make the audience say it or something. It just feels so out of character for someone as down to earth as Kitasan to be so disrespectful. I think episode 5 was an acceptable end to Kitasan and Duramente's storyline. However, it does feel a bit weird that Duramente suddenly saw Kitasan as a rival, but she only got 3rd place in their last race. Episode 6 was okay. The part where Satono Diamond got obsessed with breaking jinx was a bit too comedic for its own good and definitely too long. But I liked the part where Mejiro McQueen talked to her and made her realize how foolish it was to obsess over jinx. It was heartfelt and natural. McQueen was Daya's idol ever since she was a child, and they both had the burden of racing for their family. While I find it annoying how much they yelled when running during this season, Daya's yelling in this one was a bit more tolerable. After she won and started crying, I ended up crying with her. I'm a sucker for family stuff, so it warmed my heart to see Daya winning for her family, all of her sisters cheering her on, and the burden of her family's jinx finally lifted off her shoulders. However, episode 7 was a huge letdown. Finally, Kitasan and Daya were going to race. They had been building up this rivalry since season 2. It should be epic, right? Right? It was freaking boring. The animation was bland, the lines were terrible, and the build-up was freaking weak. Compared to the race between McQueen and Rice Shower in season 2, this race was so boring. The part where Daya caught up with Kitasan was just so uninteresting. It didn't show how powerful her running was and how Kitasan couldn't shake her despite her best efforts. And they just repeated the same line over and over before resorting to yelling again. Seriously, they need to bring back the people who wrote the scripts for the previous seasons. They did a much better job of conveying what was going through the horse girls' minds when running and really elevated the races. This was supposed to be the mid-season big climax, yet I felt nothing during the race. I should have been on the edge of my seat, but instead it was more like, oh, Daya is catching up, and she won. Whatever. This episode really killed the season for me because I couldn't understand how they managed to mess up such an important race, especially when they were perfectly capable of animating exciting races in the previous seasons. Episode 8. Here we go again. Kitasan's self-loathe again and nice nature of all people had to comfort her. This was the third time in 8 episodes that this had happened. Pull yourself together, gosh darn it. You've won 3 G1s. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Why are you like this? You're supposed to be optimistic and bright. How am I supposed to cheer for you when you let every single defeat get to you? While the things that bother her were different each time, it's frustrating how she's always a crybaby who needs other people to pat her on the back and be like, oh, you're not that bad. You did your best, Kitasan. Gosh, it's so frustrating. I don't understand how she had given up her dream because she couldn't be a star like Teo. She's not a genius. What the fudge are you talking about? You've already created the festive scenery you dreamed about, you moron. You've won 3 G1 races. You've been the most favored horse girl on 2 occasions. You've got the most votes for your second Alima. And you've run tight and thrilling races. What do you mean you can't be a star? I'm so done with this season. Anyway, on to episode 9. This one was much better. Well, I was a bit annoyed at first because they spent the entire first half not really doing anything, just showing off pretty sceneries. At least by the end of their trip, I could see Kitasan's mindset change and she was truly over whatever was troubling her before. The race was great, at least by season 3 standard. They gave the horse girls more voiceovers and you had a better idea of what was going through their minds while they were racing. The animation was a huge step up from the previous races. You could actually feel the power of Kitasan's run after the third corner and how surprised Daya and Cheval Grand were when she sped up. I cried at the end when Kitasan told Daya they could go anywhere if they were together and the song Ambitious World started playing. I'm a sucker for friendship and sisterhood. It's so touching to see them become the best friend/rival we've all been waiting for since the end of season 2. Also, I just love Ambitious World so much. I've been waiting for them to play that song all season. It's impossible for me not to cry. As for episode 10, it was okay. For someone who's been playing the game for almost 3 years, it was nice to see the Easter eggs during the school festival. Like Halloween Rice Shower, Halloween Miho no Buruball, Halloween Super Creek, Wedding Mayano Toppugan, and Wedding Air Groove, whom I happen to own in the game. Not to mention my favorites, Oguri Kappu and Tamamo Kurotsu, as well as Inari-wan. Although they only appear for a few seconds, I appreciate the fan service. However, the race quality went down again in this one. While I understand the focus was on Kitasan losing, I still wish they had put more time into developing Satono Crown so that her win in this episode would be more meaningful. She raced Kitasan so many times and had never won a Japanese G1 until now. This was supposed to be a big deal for her, yet she was sidelined so much. Episode 11 was fine. It wasn't great, but the problem was mostly because they didn't build it up properly in the previous episodes. The concept of horse girls having peaks is kind of weird. Why was Kitasan the only one who got old, but everyone else was fine? Why didn't Cheval Grand or Satono Crown experience something similar? Besides, they didn't make it clear that Kitasan ever had a peak. From what I saw in the previous episodes, she won some and lost some. There was no apparent peak. So it wasn't convincing that her racing ability suddenly declined and she wasn't in her prime anymore. The part where Daya lost in France was done well in my opinion. I like how they only showed it through a newspaper headline. That scene was way more powerful than actually showing the race, especially when the races were done so poorly in this season. Speaking of which, Kitasan's race was suboptimal again. I like how they animated the muddy racetrack. It really showed how bad the racing conditions were. But they resorted to yelling again during the race. Why? I know maybe they wanted to use the yelling to show how hard it was for Kitasan to run, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, but you have to use it sparingly for it to be dramatic. You need to let the audience know what the horse girls were going through and how the race was going by giving them voiceovers. I wasn't thrilled at all when Kitasan caught up with Crown. It was more like, oh, she's speeding up. And that was because they didn't show us what Kitasan was feeling during the race. Also, it would have been more effective if you properly built up Crown in the previous episode and made her G1 win a bigger deal. The race for episode 12 was slightly better. With Cheval Grand's voiceover and the flashbacks, it was at least more emotional. However, I have to say that it'd be better if they had actually built up their relationship throughout the season instead of shoving it into one episode. I don't remember much about Cheval Grand, just that she kept losing and lamenting about it, and she didn't seem particularly close to Kitasan either. Honestly, her sudden confession was a bit cringe, especially when Kitasan didn't seem to care about her that much to begin with. Her reaction after Cheval Grand said she would become a greater horse girl than her was so indifferent. Then she just walked away from her friend who had just won her first G1. I expected Kitasan to be a better sport than this. This is a big deal for your friend. At least show her a bit more attention. Also, I would prefer that Cheval Grand kept the I like you part as a voiceover and instead yelled I want to win or something like that out loud. That would better convey that because she liked Kitasan so much, she wanted to be like her, to become her equal by defeating her. Lastly, the season finale, episode 13. It's a decent end, but not as touching as the actual race. I only teared up when watching the anime, but I genuinely cried when I watched the actual horse race on YouTube after finishing the anime. It's insane how a supposedly dramatized anime with horse girls who could talk was less touching than real-life horse racing. Again, the problem with this episode was that the build-up wasn't enough. Although we saw through the vendor people that Kitasan was quite popular with commoners, I thought they liked her because she was close to them and helped out whenever she could. Throughout the season, they never showed why Kitasan was popular, so it was really weird that so many people were suddenly saying, I really like the way she runs in this episode. For me, that came out of nowhere. And again, I hate how Kitasan was still saying she didn't create the festive scene she dreamed of at the beginning. You've won 6 G1s at this point, and you've been the most favored horse girl 7 times, soon to be 8 times. What do you mean you couldn't create the festive scene you've dreamed about? As for the race itself, it was quite moving when Kitasan saw the crowd and it pushed her to speed up and win the race. However, give her some other line than, I want to win. Yes, I get it. It's in the opening song, and it's to show her determination, blah, blah, blah. But again, use this sparingly. Don't let her repeat it so many times. It would only become cringe if you overuse it, just like the yelling. You could have her say something similar to what Teo said during the season 2 finale. Have her go through how hard it was to run, but she wanted to win for the people who supported her. Just give us something other than I want to win and ah! But like I said, this race was one of the better races in season 3. Overall, the ending was acceptable and we finally got a winning life, but the overall season was honestly disappointing. Not terribly bad, just extremely disappointing, especially compared to season 2. So, that was my episode-by-episode review of Uma Musume Pretty Derby Season 3. I'll be releasing another video soon, going through some common issues throughout this season and what I believe they could have done to improve. Who would have thought I have so much to say about freaking horse girls? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video and like my Uma Musume inspired nails. This is the first time I feel like I've done actual nail art, and I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. As always, like, subscribe, comment, share, do what you want. Keep nailing it at umapyoy, umapyoy, people.